Have you ever felt so lost, so broken, that you walked into a place hoping for peace, only to have your world completely shattered? Today I want to tell you about Leo, a soldier who carried the weight of war not just in his heart, but on the crutches that helped him walk. What happened when he sought quiet refuge in a church one Sunday morning? Well, it's a story that still sends shivers down my spine. The heavy wooden door creaked open. It felt louder than it probably was. Leo stood there for a moment, just stood, taking a breath that didn't seem to fill his lungs. Each step inside was hard, not just because of the ache in his leg, the one that wasn't there anymore but screamed anyway. Not just because of the awkwardness of the crutches on the polished floor. It was a different kind of hard. The hard work of trying to feel something other than empty. He hadn't been to church in years. Not since before everything changed. Before the dust, the noise, the screams. Before he came home changed. In pieces, his body was healing, slowly. Scars knitting together. But his mind, his heart, that felt like a battlefield still raging. He chose a pew near the back, far away from judging eyes, or so he hoped. People turned naturally. A young man, still really, leaning heavily on crutches. Wearing clothes that seemed a little worn, a little lost, just like him. He saw pity in some eyes, curiosity in others. He just looked down. Focused on the grain of the wood beneath his worn hands. The church was quiet at first, just hushed whispers, the rustle of programs. Then the organ music started. Soft soaring notes filled the high ceilings. It was meant to be calming, he guessed. Peaceful, but for Leo, it just felt loud. Everything felt loud these days. Even silence had a ringing quality. The ghost of explosions. He didn't really listen to the first readings. The prayers, his mind drifted. Back to sand and heat. Back to his friends. Back to David, his best friend. Gone. Because of him. Maybe. The thought was a constant shadow, clinging to him. Survivor's guilt, they called it, a fancy name for feeling like you should be dead too. Then Pastor Michael stepped up to the pulpit. He looked kind. Warm smile, gentle eyes. The kind of man you felt you could trust. Leo had seen him around town once or twice. Everyone seemed to respect him. His voice was calm, steady, comforting, like a warm blanket. He started talking about faith, about finding strength in difficult times. Pretty standard stuff. Leo let the words wash over him, not really taking them in. He just wanted the quiet embrace of the building. A moment away from the world, but then the pastor's tone shifted. Just slightly, a new intensity entered his voice. Leo looked up, drawn by the change. Sometimes, Pastor Michael began, his eyes scanning the congregation, lingering. Leo felt just a little too long on him. Sometimes we carry burdens we think are ours alone. Leo's grip tightened on his crutches. Okay, still general, relatable. The pastor continued. We experience things so difficult, so painful, that we lock them away. We build walls around our hearts, thinking we are protecting ourselves. Leo felt a prickle on his skin. It was getting a little more specific. Imagine, Pastor Michael said, his voice lowering slightly, becoming more intimate, as if speaking directly to someone. Imagine being in a place far from home, a place of danger. Dust, heat. Leo's breath hitched. No, he couldn't be. How? Imagine being with your brothers. The pastor went on, his gaze unwavering. Men you trust with your life, you rely on each other, you fight together. Leo's heart started pounding. A heavy drum against his ribs. This wasn't general anymore. This was familiar. Too familiar. He could almost taste the metallic grit in the air again. And imagine, Pastor Michael's voice dropped to almost a whisper, yet it echoed in the sudden dead silence of the church. Imagine a moment, a split-second decision, under fire. Chaos all around. Leo felt cold sweat on his brow. His hands were shaking. He wanted to run, to bolt out the door. But his feet felt rooted. His missing leg throbbed with phantom pain. A decision is made, the pastor continued, his eyes locking with Leo's across the distance. It felt like they were the only two people in the room. Perhaps a turn taken too soon, or a pause held too long. Oh God, Leo squeezed his eyes shut. David's face flashed before him. Smiling. Then, gone. And the consequences, Pastor Michael's voice trembled slightly, filled with an unexpected emotion. The consequences are devastating. A life is lost. A friend. Leo opened his eyes. Tears were blurring his vision. He wasn't imagining it. The pastor was talking about his mission. His moment. The moment that haunted his every waking hour and stalked his dreams. How? How could this stranger know? The pastor leaned forward slightly over the pulpit. And the one who remains, he said, his voice thick with sorrow, carries the weight, the what-if-sis, the if-only-sis, a crushing guilt, believing they are responsible, believing they failed. Leo couldn't breathe. It felt like a physical blow. He was trembling violently, now. People around him were starting to notice. Shifting uncomfortably, whispering, looking between him and the pastor. What was happening? Was this some kind of setup? Was the pastor accusing him? In front of everyone, shame washed over him, hot and suffocating. He wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Pastor Michael paused, taking a deep breath. He looked pained, deeply pained. But what, he finally said, his voice regaining some strength. What if that guilt is misplaced? What if the story you tell yourself isn't the whole story? Leo stared, dumbfounded. What did that mean? What if? The pastor's voice rose again, clear and strong, resonating through the church. What if the friend, the one who was lost, knew the risks? What if he made his own choice? What if, just before that final moment, he left behind a message? A message. Leo's mind raced. What message? He didn't know about any message. A message, Pastor Michael repeated, looking directly at Leo, his eyes holding not accusation, but something else. Understanding. Compassion. A message not of blame, but of brotherhood. Of acceptance. Of peace. The church was utterly silent. You could hear a pin drop. Leo felt like everyone's eyes were on him. Burning into him. He felt exposed, raw, shaken to his very core. This man, this pastor, had somehow peered into the deepest, most guarded corner of his soul. He'd described the very event that had shattered Leo's life, and then, he'd offered a possibility. A twist Leo had never considered. A message. From David. He didn't know what to believe. Was this real? Was the pastor trying to help him? Or was this some cruel manipulation? His head spun. He felt dizzy. Sick. He had to get out. Now. With trembling hands, he pushed himself up. The crutches felt unsteady beneath him. He fumbled, nearly falling. A gasp went through the nearby pews. He ignored it. Head down, focusing only on putting one crutch in front of the other. He made his way towards the heavy oak door. Each step was an agony, not just physical, but emotional. He felt stripped bare. Vulnerable. Confused. He burst out into the sunlight, blinking against the sudden brightness. He leaned against the rough stone wall of the church, gasping for air. His heart was still hammering. His mind was chaos. What just happened in there? How did Pastor Michael know those details? The dust, the heat, the split-second decision, the lost friend, and the message. Was there really a message from David? He stood there for a long time. The sounds of the service continuing faintly behind the closed door. People would be leaving soon. He didn't want to see anyone. Didn't want to face the pity or the questions in their eyes. He needed answers. But the thought of going back in there, of facing the pastor, filled him with dread. Yet, the possibility lingered. A message. A message that might change everything. A message that might lift even a fraction of the crushing weight he carried. After what felt like an eternity, the church doors opened again. People began to file out, talking in low tones. Some glanced his way, then quickly looked away. He saw Pastor Michael standing near the doorway, shaking hands, offering kind words. Their eyes met again across the churchyard. The pastor gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Not of judgment, but invitation. Leo's legs felt weak, but a tiny spark, something he hadn't felt in months, maybe hope, flickered inside him. He took a deep breath. He had to know. He had to face this. Whatever it was. He pushed himself off the wall and, using his crutches, slowly, deliberately, began to walk back towards the church entrance, back towards the man who had just turned his already shattered world upside down. Pause. Leo waited until the last few people had left. Pastor Michael was still standing near the door, tidying some papers. He looked up as Leo approached. His expression was gentle, patient. "Leo," he said softly. He knew his name. Of course he knew his name. How stupid to think otherwise. Pastor Leo's voice was hoarse. What was that? In there? How did you?" Pastor Michael sighed. "Please," he said, gesturing towards a small quiet office off the main hall. "Come in. Let's sit down." Leo hesitated, then nodded. He followed the pastor into the small book-lined room. It was quiet, peaceful, so different from the turmoil inside him. He lowered himself carefully onto a worn armchair. Pastor Michael sat opposite him. "Leo," the pastor began, leaning forward slightly, "I understand you must be confused. Angry, perhaps. What I said, it wasn't meant to ambush you, or shame you." "Then what was it?" Leo asked, the words tumbling out. "You described everything. How? Were you there?" He knew it was impossible, but the details were too precise. "No, Leo. I wasn't there," Pastor Michael said gently. "But someone reached out to me. Someone who loved David very much." Leo froze. David. Hearing his name spoken so plainly felt like another blow. "Who?" "His mother," the pastor replied. "Sarah. She came to see me a few weeks ago. She's drowning in grief." "Leo." "As you can imagine." Leo nodded numbly. He hadn't been able to face David's parents since he got back. The shame was too great. "She brought me something," Pastor Michael continued. He reached into a drawer in his desk and pulled out an envelope. It looked old, worn, like it had been handled many times. David wrote her a letter. Just before that final mission, he asked her, if anything happened, if he didn't come back, to make sure someone found you. To make sure you received a message he'd included for you. Leo stared at the envelope. His heart clenched. A letter. David wrote a letter. "Sarah didn't know how to find you at first," the pastor explained. "And when she did hear you were back, she struggled. She didn't know what to do. She was afraid of causing you more pain. She finally came to me, hoping I could help." He held out the envelope. "She wanted you to have this part." "It's David's words, Leo, not mine." Leo reached out with a trembling hand. He took the folded piece of paper from the envelope. It was David's handwriting. Messy, rushed, but unmistakably his. Tears sprang to Leo's eyes again, blurring the words. He blinked them away, forcing himself to read. "Leo, man. If you're reading this, things went south. Bad. Don't you dare blame yourself. Hear me. That last push, it was my call too. We knew the risks. Both of us. What happened happened. It's war. It sucks. It's not on you. Live your life, brother. Don't let this break you. Don't carry it. Tell my folks I love them. And hey, thanks for being my friend. David." Leo read it again. And again. The simple words. So much like David. Direct. No fuss. "It's not on you. Live your life." A sob escaped him. A raw, ragged sound he couldn't hold back. It wasn't a magic cure. The pain of losing David was still immense. The trauma of what he'd seen, what he'd been through, was still very real. But that crushing weight of specific guilt, the belief that his decision alone had caused David's death, began to lift. Just a little. David knew. David understood. David didn't blame him. Pastor Michael didn't say anything. He just sat there letting Leo grieve. Letting him process. He passed him a box of tissues without a word. After a long while, Leo looked up, wiping his eyes. Why did you say it like that?" From the pulpit. Pastor Michael looked thoughtful. "Sarah wasn't sure you'd ever come see her, or me. She reads David's letter every day. Those details, they are etched into her heart, and she shared them with me. I've been praying for you, Leo. Praying for a way to reach you. When I saw you walk in today, leaning on those crutches, looking so lost, it felt like a sign. A chance. Maybe a clumsy one, he admitted with a small, sad smile. But I hoped the story, the parable, might resonate. Might open a door just enough for David's words to finally reach you. To tell you that the burden you carried wasn't entirely yours to bear. Leo didn't know what to say. It was unorthodox. Shocking, even. But it had worked. It had shattered his defenses enough to let the truth in. A difficult, painful truth wrapped in unexpected grace. He looked down at the letter again. David's words. A final gift from his friend. He wasn't suddenly healed. The scars, visible and invisible, were still there. The crutches were still needed. But standing up felt different, lighter. He met Pastor Michael's gaze. "Thank you," he whispered. It wasn't just for the letter. It was for the risk the pastor took. For seeing his pain. For trying, however unconventionally, to help. David's mother, Leo said. His voice stronger now. "Sarah. Can you tell me where she lives?" Pastor Michael smiled. A genuine warm smile this time. "I think she would like that very much, Leo." Leo left the church that day still leaning on his crutches. But he walked taller. The path ahead was still long. Healing would take time. But for the first time since coming home, he didn't feel completely lost. He had David's words. He had a new, fragile seed of hope. And he had a visit to make. A conversation long overdue. He wasn't alone with the burden anymore. And sometimes that makes all the difference. Leo's story is a powerful reminder that healing can come from the most unexpected places. And sometimes, the words that shake us the most are the ones we need to hear. The burdens we carry aren't always ours alone. If Leo's journey touched your heart, please show your support. Give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Or perhaps a time you found help unexpectedly. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. And please share this video with others who might find comfort or hope in Leo's experience. Thank you for listening.